is Dennis Gill with the Americans in Wartime Museum. The date is 3 June 2016, and I am conducting an interview with Leroy Hewitt. We're at the 2016 World War II weekend in Reading, Pennsylvania. So if you could tell us your name and where you were born.
My name is Leroy Harvey Hewitt, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And what war did you participate in?
World War II.
World War II. And what branch of the service were you in?
Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps. Okay. Now, you were not in the military prior to the war beginning, correct? You got in after the war started?
That's correct. I volunteered at the end of 42 to the beginning of 43. I forget the exact date,
okay,
but I volunteered to get in at that point.
Okay. Do you recall what you were thinking and what your thoughts were upon hearing about Pearl Harbor?
Well, first of all, I had to find out where it was.
Right. Okay.
And then I was shocked like everybody else was.
Right. Okay. Do you have any other members of your family that were in the military?
My father was in the First World War.
Okay.
He was a battalion supply sergeant, served in France, and he and I never talked about the service that he was in, but he spent a lot of time in France.
So what led you to volunteer for the Army Air Corps?
Well, I was working as a welder, as a defense worker in Sun Ship,
okay,
in Chester, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And guys were getting killed right and left because they were dropping plates on them.
Okay.
And one day, somebody was pulling up his welding line, dislodged a 75-pound bucket of bolts. It fell within 4 feet of me. So after that, I figured enlisting in the Army Air Corps was safer.
Safer. Perhaps it was. Where did you enter service? Where was your first training?
My basic training?
Basic training.
Oh, that was beautiful. It was at Miami Beach.
Okay. And from there, where'd you go?
From Miami Beach, we went to Ohio, Kent State University for education. I was enlisted in the Army Air Corps,
Okay.
and went to Kent State University for education.
And what did you do? What was your assignment when you eventually got to where you were going in the Army, in the Air Corps? What was your assignment? What did you do?
Oh, what did I do?
What did you do?
I was a bombardier.
Okay. Did you know that when you were being trained? Did you know that what you were going to be doing?
No, we got that assignment after basic training.
Okay.
And we had a meeting where they discussed whether you wanted to be a pilot, navigator, bombardier.
Okay.
And so I took several tests and got a superior rating as a bombardier because we did some tests that they assigned me as a bombardier.
Okay. Okay. So how long is the training for something like that?
Bombardier?
For bombardier training, yeah.
Well, I guess that was at least 8 months, 10 months, maybe a year.
Okay. And is that all done stateside?
Oh yes, it was done in Midland, Texas.
Midland, Texas. Okay. And what kind of aircraft were you training on?
It was a two-engine bomber of some sort.
Okay. Okay. And when did you deploy overseas?
I got overseas from Westover Field in August of 44.
Okay. And you were assigned to what Air Force were you assigned to?
The 15th Air Force. 15th Air Corps. Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps. Okay. And what type of aircraft you were on? What type of aircraft?
We were training on B-24s.
B-24. Okay. Is that did you do any training on B-24 stateside, or is that all done once you got overseas?
We did a lot of training on B-24 stateside.
Stateside. Okay. Okay. What kind? Can you explain how that what kind of training did you do, and how you train basically to be a bombardier?
Well, they taught you how to first of all, the northern bomb site at that point was highly secret, and we had to transport it undercover in a carton, really, all the time. Couldn't discuss it with anybody. At that time, they thought it was a very good weapon, and so we trained at Westover Field. We trained in Texas. We trained mostly in Texas on how to be a bombardier.
Now you get overseas. What, do you remember your first mission? First time you flew in combat?
I have it written down somewhere.
Okay. Do you recall? Do you recall doing that?
I recall being in a plane. Yes.
Yeah. Was there anything magical about that mission or anything special?
No, because
memorable?
we were our first mission. We didn't know what to expect.
Right. Right. Now I've read before that a lot of the guys on their first missions, they would basically send them on a milk run.
Oh, I don't think that didn't happen with us.
That happened to you? Okay.
As far as I know.
Right. Now, was your entire crew, would that have been their first mission, the pilot and co-pilot?
I think that our crew flew together on the first mission, yes.
Okay, so that was the first time that all of them would have flown.
Well, we had an experience, somebody had experience on the plane,
right,
so that we knew what we were doing, but
right,
basically it was first mission.
Okay. And where did you fly out of? What base was that?
Out of Turignola. It was I forget the name of the base. It was in it was the Army Air Corps field next to Turignola, Italy.
Okay.
And it was basically a field with steel plates for runway and tents to live in.
Okay. Now your first mission, how long, or your missions when you would fly, about how long would a mission take? What was your targets, things like that?
Well, we flew out of Italy. We flew to Australia, North Italy. We flew to Yugoslavia, Germany, Austria. That whole area we covered.
And what would have been a typical mission? What would that have been like?
Typical mission was you got up in the morning at 2 o'clock. You got briefed. You got into the plane. You flew for 8 hours. You came back if you were lucky, and walked off the plane. Walked past the girls who were sitting there with booze. We had a couple of shots of booze, and then we went for debriefing.
Okay. And how often would you fly? Typically?
Well, typically we flew at least twice a week.
Twice a week?
Maybe more.
Now, how many missions? You had a goal that you had to meet. How many missions did you have to fly before you could come home?
35.
35 missions. Okay. How many missions did you fly?
I flew 11 missions. Got shot down. Got my way back, and they reassigned me again, and I finished my tour of duty in April of 45.
Okay. So you got 35 missions.
I got my 35 missions in. I flew 24 missions after I got back.
Okay. So you get shot down on mission 11.
That's correct.
What was your target that day?
Auditel, Germany. It was a synthetic oil plant, and it was a very rough mission. There's a lot of fighter planes around, a lot of flak, and so we lost an engine over the target. We couldn't feather the prop. We couldn't keep up with the formation, and we tried to make our way back by ourselves.
Okay. Now, when you fly a mission like that, is it all B-24s? Would you have any B-17s in there, or any other type of aircraft as far as bombers go?
I only saw B-24s, but there was B-17s that used to fly about 5,000 feet above us.
Okay.
And I'm sure there were some B-17s, but I've never seen them.
How about fighter escort?
We did have a lot of fighter escort. I wanted to see the Tuskegee fighters here because they were red tails.
Right.
Towards the middle and the end of my tour, they escorted us. They were terrific. They were wonderful flyers. We never lost a plane when they were escorting us, and unfortunately, they're not here. I wanted to speak to some of the guys because I had an incident that I wanted to discuss with them about what happened, and they were involved in it.
Is that something you can talk to us about?
Sure. 1945, about March, I was an old timer at that time. I was very experienced, and we would break in new guys.
Right.
So I was breaking in a new gunner who was on his first mission.
Okay.
Typically, the first mission, the guys were scared because they didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So we were flying, and we got over, I think it was Austria, and all of a sudden, he started to fire the gun. I looked out, and what I saw indicated to me that he was doing something wrong, so I flipped the switches. As a bombardier in the front of the plane, I had switches controlling the the gunners. So it stopped his guns and stopped the turret. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "There's fighters out there, and I'm shooting at them." Well, they were pretty far away. You could hardly see them. I said, "They're fighters, all right, but they're our escorts." I said, "They're the red tails. You see the red tail? They're our friends. They're protecting us."
Right.
I said, "I'm going to release your guns now. Just look straight ahead, and I'll tell you when to fire if we need you." That was it. He was lucky he didn't hit anybody.
Right. Now, when you're shot down on Mission 11, was that flak that did that?
No.
On the ground, or
No. We got hit by flak, lost an engine, couldn't feather the prop, came back by ourselves. We were trying for a Viz, an island called Viz, off of Yugoslavia, where you would land. McGovern, I think, Senator McGovern also landed there around the same time that I was trying to get there. My plane was trying to get there. And so we were coming back, and we were breaking in a new pilot who was flying co-pilot, and breaking in a new navigator. So the navigator was not very good. He said we were over Vienna. We were really very close to Budapest, 90 miles east. And so we started to fly back, and we were jumped by 3 fighters. And we fought them for maybe 5 minutes or so, maybe less. One of our waist gunners shot down one of the fighters, and but the plane was hit, caught on fire, and I looked up where I was stationed in the front of the plane. You could see the pilot's feet and the co-pilot's feet on the rudders.
Right.
So I looked up. Our intercom was out. I looked up, and I couldn't see their feet. So the first thing I did was pull the lever to open up the bomb bay door. I'm sorry, not the bomb bay doors. The nose wheel door. Then I pulled my nose gunner out, handed him his chute. I was wearing a backpack because my chute was being repacked, and the backpack was a co-pilot's backpack that I was wearing. And I told him to jump. He says, "Nope, you first." I was okay. So I jumped out, pulled the ripcord, it opened up, and I landed. I did everything they said to do. I hid the chute, I looked for the woods, I started to walk to the woods, and I had 3 guys way out there yelling at me. So I stopped, and I walked towards them. They came to me, and they started hitting me around a little bit. And then one of the guys saw I had an American flag on my shoulder, on the flight thing. I had it sewed in there. Thank God. Because he immediately stopped the guys from pounding me, pointed to the flag, and here I thought we were in Germany. I thought we were off of Vienna because I said, "Who are you?" So he pulls off his hat, and shows me the hammer and sickle. He says, Ruski, and I said Amerikansky. And that was it.
Right.
I got with them, and they were good people.
So you were not over Germany. You were over.
We got shot down over. We got
Well,
got hit over Germany.
But you actually.
Ortel, Germany. Yeah.
Okay, but you actually parachuted into.
I parachuted right below Budapest, Hungary, a town called Ortel, not Ortel. It was about 30 kilometers below Budapest is where I bailed out.
Okay. What happens after you meet the Ruskies? What happens at that?
Oh, they were wonderful. They were terrific. I was in a frontline place where the guys were. I sat there for about 4 or 5 hours. A couple other guys came in another plane, bailed out right near us.
Right.
So a couple of their guys was in, and then we were transported to a frontline hospital where I met the rest of my crew who was alive. The co-pilot was killed.
Okay.
The 2 guys in the waist gunner were wounded when a 20 millimeter exploded in there. 2 guys busted their legs. The nose gunner busted his leg,
Okay.
and the navigator busted his leg on landing. So we were at the hospital, and they were taking care of us. The Russians were.
Right. Now, were you injured at all?
Well, I got a Purple Heart, but I wasn't really seriously injured. I got a Purple Heart because I did have some minor damages, and the doctor issued the Purple Heart, says, you're a Purple Heart veteran. That's 5 points, which I loved because it gave me 5 points to get out.
Okay. All right. So how long before you're reunited with an American unit?
Well, they grabbed us together. The guy who was wounded was kept. The 2 busted legs were kept. We buried our co-pilot in a cemetery. It was at Dony, Adony, Hungary, right below Budapest.
Okay.
In the cemetery. We buried him. And then we traveled with 2 Russian youngsters from the army through Yugoslavia. We met 50 shot down Americans that was being transported by an English major from Yugoslavia to Bucharest, Romania, where there was an American mission. And we lived with them for a while. We got on a train in Yugoslavia, went through Bulgaria, I think it was Bulgaria, through Romania, the oil fields, into Bucharest, Romania, where we were treated like $1 million. We really had a wonderful time.
Right.
And we stayed there for 2 weeks because the Americans couldn't take us back. The weather was bad. They couldn't get a plane in. So we had a wonderful experience in Bucharest, Romania.
And then you reunited with your unit, and then at some point
got back, and we were supposed to go home.
Right.
But that was the standard then. You got shot down, you escaped, evaded capture, they sent you home. So got in there, and the colonel said, okay, Hewitt, you and your crew, get everything together, whatever you got, we got some stuff stored away, we'll get it together, and we'll send you home in a couple of days. Then the next day I got a call from him and says, come on over, I want to talk to you. He says, they've changed the rules. The English never sent anybody home. You had to fly whether how many times you got shot down.
Right.
They changed the American rules, so we were told then that we had to continue to fly. Well, I blew my stack. Didn't do any good. He says, look, he says, you don't have to fly if you don't want to. Just tell us you don't want to fly, and we'll ground you. He says, then you'll do the rest of the war here on the ground. I said, I can't do that. That is sort of copping out, which you don't do. So I said, I'll fly. He said, fine. I said, did you tell my crew yet? He said, that's for you to tell them. So I had to go back, and my pilot, I don't know where he was, but I went to the crew's tent. They were all packed up, ready to go home, and I had to tell them that they had a choice of flying because they wanted us to fly, or refusing to fly and be grounded.
Right.
They all decided to fly. We continued our tour.
What rank were you at the time?
I was either first or second, probably a second lieutenant, but I was promoted to first lieutenant right afterwards.
Anything stand out about any of the other missions that you flew? I mean, you flew 35 total.
No, except that it was pretty difficult at times. The flak was awful. The fighter planes were not so hotsy-totsy, and so we always took off, never knowing whether we'd get back or not.
What you talk about? You mentioned earlier the Norton bomb sight. What advantages did that give you over what they'd been using before that?
I have no idea.
But it was a game changer, supposedly, correct?
Supposedly it was a changer. I flew lead and deputy lead and lead when I got back because I was pretty experienced at that point.
Right.
So I flew. I remember Zambotli, Hungary. I flew a mission with Zambotli, Hungary. I think I got a DFC because of that mission, and I dropped the bombs with the whole squadron. We landed our bombs within 2,000 feet of the target, right on the target. I was the only one that did that because it was the weather was not good, and it just happened to open up when we got to the target, and I was able to target use the bomb site properly.
Were you married at the time that you were over there?
No.
No. Do you have an occasion to keep in touch with family at all?
With what family?
With your family? Did you write letters and things like that while you were overseas?
While I was overseas?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, my parents did. They got a letter. They got a telegram from the government, missing in action letter,
Right.
and they didn't know I was alive.
Okay. So you do your 35 missions and then you come home. Anything memorable about your homecoming?
Not really.
No.
Just wonderful to be home. And then I was sent to West Coast, somewhere in the West Coast, for about a month. Then I was sent back to Westover Field for a couple of months, and then the Jap War ended, and I got sent home. I was one of the first guys out at Indiantown Gap.
Fort Indiantown Gap?
I was discharged Indiantown Gap.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Now, presumably, one of the goals of this project is to preserve the stories like yourself, like your story, for people in the future to see it. Is there any messages you'd like to pass on to them?
Everybody has to make their own mind up what they want to do out of life.
Right.
So, the only message that you can do is be yourself.
How do you think that now that you have a chance to look back on it, how do you think your wartime experience affected your life?
I never thought of it as affecting my life at all.
Right.
I just thought it was just an experience. I was happy to be alive. I joined a lot of the organizations. The Air Force Escape and Evasion Society is the organization that I feel very close to. These are all guys that were shot down, evaded capture. Most of them out of the 8th Air Force were shot down France, Belgium, that area.
Okay.
We had a wonderful setup. We met every year, and there was some guys that really had some very, very extensive experiences where they were shot down. They got in with the underground, and I learned a lot about it. I learned how the priests, the priests, Catholic Church, the priests saved many of them. If the guy got shot down and found a church, the priest would take him and hide him and get him in with the underground.
Okay.
Didn't know that at the time, but that's what happened.
Right.
These guys all had wonderful experiences. I had a minor experience compared to some of the guys who were shot down in France.
Right. Well, on behalf of the Americans of Wartime Museum, I'd like to thank you very much for your service, and I thank you very much for giving us a few minutes of your time and telling your story. It's a pretty interesting story.
No,
you don't get a lot of guys.
It's a minor story, not a major story.
Well, it depends how you look at it, I guess. We don't get a lot of guys that were shot down and then evaded
really?
capture. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm the only guy left of my crew. There were 10 of us. Bingo, I'm the only guy left. I'm one of the few guys left of this Evasion Society. They're the sons and daughters and the kids of the guys who were running it are trying to keep it together. And they'd still hold a meeting once a year. I have never attended it. It's not attended the way it was when there was 500 guys around. So, but it was an interesting experience, and the people I met who were flew, people I met who were shot down, people I know who had experiences were wonderful, and it felt good to be with them.
That organization, is that just World War II, or is it?
I think it started in World War II, yes.
Okay, but it's not restricted to just World War II vets necessarily.
I don't think so. I think it's
for anybody.
I think so, but it's not nowhere near the organization it was, because everybody's dead.
Right.
There's only a few of us around.
Well, that happens.
What's that?
That happens.
Well, I'm 93.
Yeah.
I'll be 94 next month.
Right.
So there's very few guys around like me.
Yeah.
As long as I'm drinking, eating, and walking, I'm in good shape.
You're in good shape. Yes, you are. Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.